Hello. Thanks for hopping on here. I'm Delia, and I'm so glad that you're here. Really, really glad that you're here. I wanted to jump on and let's just address the fact that times are crazy. Whether it's looking at the how the COVID has been handled, how it's being handled, the misinformation, the way we're not allowed to know what's going on so that we could make rational choices. The disease itself is bad enough, but we don't hear about the disease. We hear about a lot of nonsense. So there's two things that are going on. One is just a shitstorm of insanity, misinformation, lies, spin, just the list. And all of those things are incredibly distracting. They're compelling. They're like, are you kidding me? Did that really happen? Did they really say that? Did they really do that? It's so exaggerated, over the top, insane, like the Twilight Zone. Seems subtle enough, but it's not. It's just insane. So here are the two things that we're going to address. One is the insanity of it, and the other is the distraction. And how they work together is, if you're stimulated, insanity is very stimulating, and then your body's really nervous and scared that this crazy thing is happening and wants to figure it out, because that's what's been modeled for us as the only way to deal with the world, is to make it make sense. And the more you try to make the insanity make sense, the more insane you get. This is where 15 years of Al-Anon has come in really handy, because trying to make the insane sane makes you insane. Simple. So there's the insanity, and then the distraction. And the insanity is very distracting. It's very engaging. It gets all of your emotions and mind and body involved, right? And if you're distracted, then you can't stand against the hurricane of the tsunami of bullshit. You can't have good sleep. You can't have good digestion. You can't take care of yourself, self-care. You can't make good choices because you're making yourself insane trying to figure all this stuff out. So if you're, in the 60s, television was still pretty new. It started, I think, in the 50s. And I remember when nobody had televisions. I remember when we got our first TV, not very well, but I do remember it. I remember crying with joy when we got our first color TV, and there was only one TV in one room in the house, right? So the media, the way we were informed, right, changed dramatically not that long ago. And when the 60s were happening, and the Vietnam War and the protests and the civil rights movement, especially, no one had ever seen the things that were going on. No one had ever seen the KKK, aka the cops, attacking and using dogs on American citizens, the Black people. No one had ever seen these kinds of activities, much less every night at dinner, right? And no one had ever seen their sons in war in Vietnam. And it made a huge impression. And one of the impressions that we got at the time was we have to be informed, meaning we have to watch the news. And we still had, Edward R. Murrow and Walter Cronkite, and we didn't have the teams or the philosophy of social engineering that we do now. And there was a different ethic, there was a different ethos, there was a different, it's apples and patio furniture. It's not like now at all. Let's just go there. And you can find out why. But one of the takeaways for any of us who were around in the 60s was you have to be informed and you have to watch the news or you have to read newspapers to be informed. That's how you get informed, because there is a trustworthiness in the media. And that has all been chipped away at and eroded, and they discovered that they could manipulate, and they discovered that if people saw what was going on, they would put a stop to it. So there's a concerted effort to control. Doesn't matter. The rest of it doesn't matter. What matters is that today, people still have that ethos, that embedded, we have to watch the news, we have to be in aware of what's going on through media, right? And now everything is so curated that it's not as effective as it used to be. So if you were to select a few people that you trust, and then check in with them once a day. And if you would keep your news time limited, like with an egg timer, right? And for 10 minutes, you're going to listen to so-and-so talking about the news today, then that would be sufficient being informed. Because this 24-hour business is sufficient to keeping us distracted and apoplectic and, close to insane. So here's a couple of things that you can do. One is quantify how much time you're going to spend on the news. And then anywhere that you have been enculturated to do news and information as infotainment, maybe you could wean yourself off of that, make a choice about that, right? So those are two things that you can do. Put a limit to it and notice where you're doing infotainment to keep yourself occupied and distracted, because being distracted is really engaging, right? And see about doing that less or stopping it to see, right? You can imagine that it's like crack cocaine. You can imagine like it's, soft drinks or something. And, because what you ingest, not only with food and beverages, what you ingest with your eyes makes a huge difference. It makes a huge impact on your whole life. What you ingest with your ears also makes a big impact. And the information that you ingest through your eyes and your ears sends your brain into different places. So if you see something that's horrifying to you, caged babies, right? Then what happens is your brain goes to that and the implications of that and the ramifications of that and maybe the history of that. It like goes and goes and goes and goes and goes, right? Now, were you in a position where your job was to decide whether or not that kind of thing should happen or what should happen about it, if you're in an elected official, or if you have a um, an actionable relationship with that information, that's one thing. If you're a citizen and you're taking in that information, your job, your actionable thing as a citizen, and this is, to me, a serious thing, how we participate and how our culture operates is an important part of being in a community, right? So once you're aware of these things, then you write postcards. You write postcards because they don't have to open an envelope. If they go to an envelope, they're never going to get to the destination. And you write postcards these days to help support the post office. You find an actionable thing that you can do, and then you apply yourself to the action steps, right? To participate in how we do things, and to raise awareness that this is not acceptable. And then you let it go, right? So you can't get upset with the caged babies and then not sleep for 2 weeks and maybe send a postcard and agree that that isn't doing enough. And then berate yourself because you're not in a position to do anything tangible about the situation. And instead, you're spending a tremendous amount of emotional energy, which is valuable, to be in turmoil about something that you're not taking action on. And that's what I mean about distracted. It's not just click, 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 which every time you click, you're giving your brain some dopamine, which is why it has addictive qualities and why it's hard to stop. And the best thing to do with things that are hard to stop is don't start them. And the other thing to know is that when you're changing addicted and your biochemical dopamine thing is an addiction, then when you're changing the craving, whatever addiction you're stopping, right? There's going to be a craving. Cravings don't last long. I don't remember how long they last, but let's say 3 minutes. And if you are aware that you're having a craving and that the craving is lying to you, saying, if you don't do this, you're going to die. And if you're nice to you during the craving, it's okay, buddy, we're just going to ride it out. And you don't judge yourself and you're not mean to yourself, then you can change whatever it is. All right, so that's like 3 things so far. Minimize your exposure and become aware of where your exposure has been entertainment, and how to change the addictive part of it, how to choose your way through an addiction is to be kind to you and make a different choice in that moment, and know that the craving thing, it cycles fast. It's not that long. It'll tell you it's an eternity, and it feels like an eternity because it's so intense, but it's not that long. And then the other thing that I really recommend become like a mantra, especially if you're in front of a computer screen with the Facebook or some kind of social media, is, and you can write this down, it's everything is the opposite of what it appears to be, and nothing is the opposite of what it appears to be. Everything is the opposite of what it appears to be, and nothing is the opposite of what it appears to be. Everything is the opposite of what it appears to be, and nothing is the opposite of what it appears to be. So write that down. Everything is the opposite of what it appears to be, and nothing is the opposite of what it appears to be. That's one stanza. And you repeat that one stanza many, many times until you feel your energy shift. Maybe you'll notice your mood is lightening. Maybe you'll notice some space, more space, like less pressure somewhere on your body. You may notice that your rat brain isn't quite so vicious, or it doesn't have so much potency, doesn't have so much energy, or it starts to calm down or cool off. There's just a myriad of ways. There's a lot of different ways that you'll notice that your energy shifts. And if you say to yourself, everything is the opposite of what it appears to be, and nothing is the opposite of what it appears to be, every time you feel crazy, and you just repeat it over and over again, you will notice that you feel crazy for less amounts of time, and you buy the sensation, am I crazy? You buy it less when it's happening, and you can start to recognize it as like a loop. I always think in terms of like the bad side effects of having too much caffeine and realizing I had this moment where I used to overdo caffeine a long time ago, and I would get serious rat brain. My brain was just and it was always insisting and demanding that I figure something out, or that I take action, that I make a decision. And I would make the decision or figure it out or whatever. And then another hour would go by, and I would still be on this urgent rant in my head. And I finally realized, oh, this is just too much caffeine. I don't have to take any of this stuff in my head seriously anymore. And once I realized that, two things. One is I learned how to stop drinking so much coffee and making a different choice. And when I was in that rat brain place, I didn't take it personally anymore. I didn't take it so seriously anymore. I didn't believe it so much anymore. So everything is the opposite of what it appears to be, and nothing is the opposite of what it appears to be, is going to be, if you utilize it, really, really handy, especially for the next few months and maybe longer. But over the course of the next 6 to 8 weeks, there's going to be a particular level of insanity and intensity. And every time you think you can't take any more, or it can't get any weirder, or it can't get any more horrifying, it will. So having this phrase is a way to break through it, because it's as though, here's another handy example from my colorful past. One time in the early 70s or late 60s, I can't remember when it was, must have been the early 70s, I dropped acid. And it's a lot of hallucinations, and it's a lot of stuff. It's just a lot. But the only thing that's important and relevant, rather, to this conversation is that I snuck out. I got caught, and my father was furious, and he was an ex-Marine sergeant, so he was scary anyway. And I had to be driven home by him at 2:00 in the morning with him yelling at me. And because I was hallucinating, and he looked a lot like his brother who had just died, and I was like freaking out, right? And then mercifully, he just sent me to my room, and I went to my room, and I was too wired to sleep. So I was just looking around in the dark, in my room and out the window. And I was looking at the oak tree out my window. And then I noticed the oak tree was like moving and wafting around, even though there was no wind, because I was hallucinating. And I wanted to stop the hallucinations. And it's like right now, it's too stimulating and it's too crazy making. And so I closed my eyes. And when I did, the hallucinations continued. And it was a very trying, very difficult night because it was not fun and I was completely resisting it. And I didn't want it to be how it was. And so I felt like a victim to how it was. So here's the thing about now. We can easily feel like a victim to how things are. And there's certainly a body of evidence for that. And there's certainly lots of logic for that. But the thing is that if you feel like a victim to now, you're disempowering yourself. You're bleeding your power. Because how we think about things can either feed us and empower us and strengthen us, or it can bleed us and make us weak and tired or cranky. So if you're thinking in terms of you're not having any power because you don't have a job in office, right? Then you're agreeing that you have no power and that what goes on for you is not important. And truly what goes on for you is important. Even when you don't recognize it, even when you don't agree with that. And this is a really great time to learn how to stand in you, to stand in your spot. When you're agreeing that how things are going for you doesn't matter, you're outside of you, over there where they are, invalidating you. And this is an important time. And one of the amazing lessons that's really pressing on us right now is how to stand in you and be empowered, no matter what they say. Everything is the opposite of what it appears to be, and nothing is the opposite of what it appears to be, spoils that whole insanity stuff. It makes it less attractive. It makes it less stimulating. It helps you buy it less. And the less you buy it, the more you can stand in you, in your sovereignty, in your power, in your choice. And that changes everything. Because if you're not agreeing with them, you're not empowering them. The them, by the way, is not just people. There are other energies at play in all of this. And when you understand that everything, every molecule, everything has consciousness, then you can understand that these different phenomenons that are happening with the weather and the fires and the hurricanes and the this and the that all have some kind of consciousness. You don't have to figure it out too much. Just understand that there is some kind of consciousness going on. And your sense that there's a battle of good and evil going on is also really accurate. And whether you want to use the analogy of the Matrix or, whatever analogy makes sense to you is fine. It's so complex. We live in a multi-universe, not a universe. There's so many different dimensions of what's happening right now and the brain is not designed to do multidimensional chess or multidimensional reality. And that's fine. You can just know that there's more going on than you can put a finger on. And there's certainly more going on that anybody else can put a finger on. And you know that this is true because once you hear that, your body reacts, right? Your body's like, oh, I'm not crazy. There is more going on than what we're being told or that what I can identify. And that's true. Again, everything is the opposite of what it appears to be, and nothing is the opposite of what it appears to be. Gets your brain, your analyzer, off the hook because you can't figure this stuff out. And figuring out is not the answer. The answer isn't out there. It's, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? So you stop taking in the story of what's going on. You minimize your exposure to the whatever it is that whoever you trust. And then you minimize the amount of time. And you start to notice, where are you using infotainment to distract you and to get you out of you, right? Being over there. And once you start to notice how much time you're spending outside of you, you can start to choose to be on your side. And however you're not on your side will show up. And all you have to do is, when you start to see that you're not on your side, you're thinking in ways that are not in your favor, that are not supporting you, that are not kind to you, you make a different choice. If you use I choose me, you will, it's not about ego and it's not about competition, it's about being on your side. And then you'll start to live from you instead of living from them. And that will help tremendously. And everything is the opposite of what it appears to be, and nothing is the opposite of what it appears to be, can be a lifeline. It can help you to stop buying the lies and trying to figure everything out, because it's not figure outable. There's so many things that are going on right now that have nothing to do with the analyzer and thinking, but the culture has gotten to the point where analyzer and thinking is the only thing of value, which is partly what's screwing everything up. A lot of what's happening right now is the melting away of the structures that have been misleading humanity. And to say anything more than that is to give a definition, and that's not what's going to be helpful. What's helpful is, what do you choose? Do you choose to be on your side, or do you choose to be on their side? And this science fiction story that we're living in right now, a lot of it is the techie realities and the false realities are fighting for the soul of humanity and to destroy the planet and to get humans to destroy the planet. So whether you buy that or not, everything is the opposite of what it appears to be, and nothing is the opposite of what it appears to be is going to help. And choosing to be on your side is going to change things. So the other thing that I just can't stress enough is just clear-eyed amusement. And by that I mean, when you see somebody who's evil, or you see something evil, and there's a lot of evil right now. Kids in cages is evil. People defending that's evil. And maybe evil is too charged a word. Maybe we could use anti-consciousness, because there is an element of all of this. There's a team that wants to destroy people and the planet itself, and to pretend that they're just out of balance, or that they're wounded and they just need to heal, to pretend that that's not a clear-eyed choice on their part, is crazy making to you. It's it will make you crazy because you're trying to project onto another um, another entity your stuff, right? Because we've been told that that's how we build community. No, there are energies and entities that want to cause pain and destruction. And if you don't see that, if you don't acknowledge that, then you're out of the game because you're in a fantasy world. Being able to see clear-eyed, this is insane, and not take it personal, and to stand your ground. I choose me. And to the best of your ability, either laugh or smile at the energy. One of the best things I heard lately was that this is like the schoolyard bullies are all getting up and trying to take over. And do you remember that the girl that they put the bronze statue of like an 11-year-old girl with her ponytail and her hands on her hips and her feet astride in front of the bull at Wall Street? The more you can be you, because you're a kick-ass being, and clear-eyed see the bullshit and just go, I'm not buying it. You have no power here. I'm not going to drink the fear. I'm not going to spread the fear. We have the power and we're using the power, and you are going, mofo, your time here is up. And you can do that when you're choosing to be on your side. You're cutting back on the toxins that you're ingesting. And mostly, I mean media, as well as food and drink. And everything is the opposite of what it appears to be, and nothing is the opposite of what it appears to be. So allow yourself to be empowered. Choose to empower you. Choose to be you. Choose to clean up your water drop, and that will help to clean up the ocean. And stop drinking the Kool-Aid that you have no power and that you don't matter. You have tremendous power and you matter more than you think. And this is a time to discover that and to start to live that. So thank you so much, and love you. Hug up on you for me, and be the amazing being you truly be. I'll see you soon.